Hi, this is Ty. Welcome to another episode of Let's Chat, an audio experience of street epistemology for now. Currently an audio experience for now. This is an interesting talk because I was speaking to a person who believed in God as a way to keep him from relapsing into alcoholism. And so immediately I was faced with this really big conundrum of how far do I want this conversation to go? Because I don't want this person to have a bad consequence as a result of our conversation. The scenario here is that I meet with my walking group about once a week around the place where I live, and I met a new friend of a friend. His name was Rob, and we hung in the back and just had some time to chat.
I might as well try it. When in Rome, do it. And even in the meeting, even during this talk, I'm like, this was a bad idea.
You can feel it just starting to move around.
Afterwards, my body was just like, nope. Just pulled every lever. And I'm like, I told my boss, like, I gotta go. And my home was like maybe like a 5-minute walk away. And I'm walking this as best as I can. And it's just like...
So we're going back and forth. We're having a great time. And then Rob takes the conversation into a really interesting area. He says that he had gone traveling to Iceland with his son once, and he had seen a waterfall that was so beautiful that it was proof to him that a God existed.
Like, what are we talking about?
Oh, bigger.
Whoa!
Louder.
Are you kidding me?
Because it's got these 90-degree turns, and then 100-foot drop, and then another 90-degree turn, and another 200-foot drop. It's just, and it's deafening.
Wow.
Again, another example of if you didn't believe there was a God.
Would you say those beautiful sights have supported your faith?
Yes. I would say that they amplified it.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, these things can't happen by chance. I mean, it's just too much.
These things just don't happen by chance. Whenever I hear that, I really want to delve into a belief like that. So I got his permission to see if we could do a quick, 5-minute interview. But I quickly realized that his reasons for believing in his own higher power were far more crucial to him than it was for me as a training exercise in street epistemology. So I asked him how he came to his belief in a higher power, and he said he came to it through Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was literally the only thing that was able to get him through the entire program. And that's how we knew it worked for him.
Mind if we talk about it for like a couple minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. I came to believe in a higher power through Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh.
Because nothing was going to work for me unless I found, because I was not beating the booze. I needed to hand it over to something who could be. And that's really what happened.
Okay.
And, I had no choice but to say, okay, let's get this and try and turn that at work. So, sold me.
Now, that was already a bigger response than I could have ever anticipated. Still, I guess I just wanted to find out what kind of God we were talking about during this conversation, because I didn't want to automatically assume that he was a Christian. So I asked him, what is the God that he believes in? And I got a really incredible answer.
Is that the main reason why you came to that? Or what things are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't...
Not to assume, like, is it like Muslim God?
No, it's
higher power?
You see, my thing is, my take is that if I were to try to define what my God or higher power is, it would be really arrogant.
Oh.
It would be me imposing my will, my views on, it would be putting limits on what that power is. And that's not my job.
So even though he said it wasn't his job to define what God was, the entire reason why we started this conversation was because he was attributing things in nature as a creation made by his higher power. So I brought that up.
It did sound like, before we were talking about Isaac, that you were convinced that the higher power created these things. So.
Well, there is that too. It's
okay.
Like, not that it is evidence, but it's certainly not. I would say that it certainly lends support to the notion that there is an interventionist God.
Okay.
But really, in terms of my faith is based on what is around me and me getting in touch with it.
Like nature?
No, just
community?
Getting outside of myself.
Okay.
because the more time I spend with myself, the more trouble I get into.
In case you didn't hear that, he said that the more time he spent with himself, the more trouble he got into. And that sounded like another red flag to me, to the point where I was willing to just stop the interview right there. This God belief did so much for Rob, and I wanted to find out really just how much value was he getting out of it? Like, what did it do for him?
It makes me appreciate something other than me.
As you appreciate things other than yourself.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's unburdening, I'll tell you that much. Do you have a faith?
So if we're going to talk about like a God, you can think about it like a spectrum from like 0 to 100. There are a lot of people who are like maybe on the 100 scale. Like, how confident are you that this God's true or this higher power is true? Like from 0 to 100.
Oh, 100. Yeah.
100?
Yeah.
That's really, really high.
Well, because I can't have it any other way. I have to believe it. Not because people tell me I have to believe it. It's just because if I start having doubts and putting more faith in myself over something bigger than me, I'm screwed.
Do you think you would relapse if you didn't have this faith to help you?
Yeah.
You couldn't have seen it at the time, but he firmly nodded his head and said, yeah, he would have relapsed.
It wouldn't necessarily happen immediately. It would happen at some point.
Is like the faith more or less just a really good anchor for you to keep from relapsing, more than it is a claim that something's actually true?
Well, I think it's definitely the first, but it's also something that opens up life for me.
Sure, I can see that too. It's like a philosophy then.
Right. I mean, it's like if I'm very rigid in my thinking and thinking that that I am right, if it takes it relieves me of some responsibility that I didn't need to take on, and
that's less stress,
and allows me to pay attention more to everything outside of me, other people, like it allowed me to learn Spanish.
Oh, wow, really?
So just to summarize, I asked him if his faith was more of just an anchor to keep him from relapsing than it was a claim on something actually being true. And he said it's pretty close to, that, but his faith also allows him to have, less stress. It's less of a burden because he doesn't have to take on so much responsibility for his actions. And it opens up his life. Because of that, he even developed new talents, such as learning how to speak Spanish. At this point, I guess I just wanted to find out what would have happened if he had developed all of these special talents and insights without having that belief. If he could get to that same place without having to believe in a higher power, would it mean anything more to him? I asked him that, and this was his response.
Would that mean anything more to you than, or would it be more or less?
I think it'd be it'd be different, but it wouldn't be more or less. It'd just be a different kind of thing. And for somebody like me who has been pretty full of himself for most of his life, learning humility is a good thing.
I think so as well. Absolutely.
I mean, that's what grown-ups have.
Do you think it's possible to be humble and not have these beliefs?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But, for me, this is what it takes. But it has made my life much more open and full since I sort of stopped drinking because, at the point where you stop putting poison in your body, things get a lot easier. But, changing my way of thinking is also very important.
So to put it this way, Rob's life has dramatically improved now that he's no longer an alcoholic, and he attributes that improvement to a god, specifically his higher power. The only thing was, I didn't find his reasoning convincing, but I was afraid to point out flaws without causing him to relapse. I didn't want that either. So instead, I brought up an analogy, and the analogy went something like, say there was a person who also had a substance abuse problem, went through a 12-step program, got out of it successfully, and used that as justification that Allah or Vishnu was the one true God. Would they be justified using that reasoning to come to the conclusion that their belief is actually true?
Does that make their belief true?
Well, it's truth for them. Where I would find it difficult to follow is if they try to impose it on other people. Because then there really is something wrong with the thing. That's where, because the thing about faith is that you take it on faith. You don't have evidence, but you accept it.
So Rob's point was they can believe whatever they want as long as they, don't try to force other people to believe it. Because what was important to him wasn't so much being force-fed an ideology, but having the opportunity to take that ideology on faith alone. And faith is a big word in street epistemology. It's such a weird thing for people to base their beliefs on. So I asked him, is faith something that he founds his beliefs on? And he said, yeah, because at a certain point, you can't scientifically prove everything. So at a certain point, you're going to need to take a leap of faith. We decided to talk about that for a little bit, and that led us into the end of the talk.
I mean,
Is faith a big part of your beliefs?
well, yeah, I mean, I kept it at a certain point. I have to take a leap and just let it work for me.
Do you think faith, or having faith, is something which is, I think, as you defined it, taking the leap when you don't have the evidence?
Right.
Is that a reliable way to come to true conclusions?
I'm just going to repeat that question because I think it's so important for this conversation. I asked Rob, is faith, and by that I mean taking leaps when you don't have the evidence, a reliable way to come to true conclusions?
Well, I think the question is what you find as a true conclusion.
His response was, well, that depends on what you define as a true conclusion. And my immediate response was that which comports with reality.
Something that comports with reality.
Well, yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. You have the faith, you take the leap, and either it works or it doesn't. If it works, sometimes, that...
Sorry for all the wind. This is more or less what Rob was saying. Sometimes faith works, sometimes it doesn't. When it does work, it's great. But when it doesn't, that could be so crushing and you're left with nothing. And that could be so much to take, especially on your own. And sometimes you're just better off, as he put it so poignantly. Sometimes you're better off just accepting the fiction.
Yeah, sometimes you allow yourself to accept the fiction,
Sometimes you allow yourself to accept a fiction.
Yeah.
For the benefit of improving your life.
Right. Because it gets you out of the way. It gets me out of the way.
Is it important for you to believe in true things?
When I'm dealing with others, I like to have truth. In terms of dealing with myself, sometimes faith is enough.
Okay.
Yeah. But facts are always important for...
Sure. That was a great talk. Thank you.
Yeah, back at you.
Thank you, Rob.
We concluded our talk there, but I'm still thinking about one of the last things he said, where he was saying that when he's dealing with other people, facts are really important to him. But when he's dealing with himself, faith was enough for him. And he clearly makes the distinction between facts and faith, but gets so much value and utility from faith that he's not willing to let go of it. And I didn't know where else I could go in that kind of conversation. I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Did I go too far? Did I not go far enough? What would you have done in this situation? Anyway, until next time, this is Ty and Adventures in Street Epistemology. Let's chat sometime.